Anniversary games for Sonic have always made me skeptical. For the 10th anniversary, we got Sonic Adventure 2, which was good. Then for the 15th anniversary, we got Sonic 06, and everyone knows how that went. Now with Sonic turning 30 years old next year, I have no idea what to expect. But today we'll be focusing on the 20th anniversary game, Sonic Generations. After Sonic Colors came out with pretty remarkable scores for the series at the time, it seemed like Sonic was finally back on his feet with the franchise. Following Sonic Colors, we got a direct sequel that would feature not one, but two Sonics. I remember when this game first came out, bringing classic Sonic back as his own character was huge. It may not seem like a big deal now that they've done it so many times, but this was amazing back in 2011 as it was the first time we truly got a return to form with 2D side-scrolling Sonic. As well as 9 remade fan-favorite levels from each era of Sonic, this game was showing a lot of promise up until its release, which is rightfully so as it's the game for Sonic's 20th birthday. But we all know that showing promise doesn't necessarily equate to delivering a good game. So let's begin with the plot of Sonic Generations. Sonic Generations begins with all of Sonic's friends throwing them a surprise party. Sonic shows up shortly after and begins to enjoy his 20th birthday complete with a wrapped chili dog as a gift. But before he could finish stuffing his face, the party is interrupted by a flying monster that not only captures all of Sonic's friends, but knocks him out in the process. Sonic then wakes up in a timeless white void and immediately goes to travel through an area with familiar terrain. At around the same time, classic Sonic is traversing Green Hill Zone right before being taken from the monster himself. Both Sonics travel through the Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone, figuring that revisiting these worlds will not only restore them back in time, but also rescue their friends from being lifeless statues. But both Sonics don't butt heads with each other until they have their first confrontation with Eggman, that of which classic Sonic jumps directly into battle, with modern Sonic not being able to make it. After classic Sonic defeats Eggman, both Sonics and Tails regroup to discuss what's going on. Turns out that monster is going through time and space and erasing Sonic's history from existence, so it's up to both classic Sonic and modern Sonic to race through time, rescue all of their friends, and restore back their history. After traveling through each era of Sonic and bumping heads with a few old foes, both Sonics approach the flying monster, only to find out that it was Dr. Eggman controlling the monster, along with himself from the past. Both Dr. Eggmans plan on using the power of the Time Meter to erase their past failures and take over the world. At first, both Sonics don't stand a chance against Eggman, but with the power of friendship and the 7 Chaos Emeralds, both Sonics go supersonic and school Eggman once again. Time is finally restored back to normal, and Sonic goes back to enjoying his birthday along with his younger self, right before departing back into the past, while Eggman argues with himself in the timeless white void that they're stuck in.
You were the one who said you saw a door over here! Well, I know it was one of us. Shut up and keep looking.
Similar to Sonic Colors, Sonic Generations presents us with a very short amount of cutscenes, and like before, they're very reminiscent of that of a Saturday morning cartoon. All of the characters feel authentic and deliver the lines pretty well. But the same issue that I had with Sonic Colors story is still prominent here. The story in both games starts off very strong with plenty of exposition. Then once our heroes get established to put a stop to whatever's going on, the game doesn't really pick up again until the final area of the game, right before the final boss. Once again, that's a bummer, but I should note that I don't mind it as much here as I do in Sonic Colors. This is because the main setting of the game is a timeless white void, so even if there aren't a whole bunch of cutscenes containing the story, it at least makes sense as Sonic doesn't really have time to be wasted on small talk. However, I will credit the game for having some very charming character interactions throughout the entire game. After clearing the stage with both classic and modern Sonic, a cutscene will show one of Sonic's friends being rescued and we get a bit of small talk from them. It's nice to see how different every character's personalities are, and they really shine in this game, especially the interactions between classic and modern Sonic. Those are some of my favorites.
Pretty slick move, huh?
Sonic Generations has two different styles of gameplay: 2D side-scrolling platforming with classic Sonic, and 3D boost gameplay with modern Sonic. Classic Sonic controls relatively similar to how he did in the Genesis games, but isn't as fine-tuned. I found classic Sonic to be much heavier than he was in the Genesis games, resulting in his movement not being very momentum-based, but his spin dash got an insane boost. To perform the spin dash, you simply have to hold down the square button, or X button if you're playing on Xbox, and Sonic can launch forward with a crazy amount of acceleration. Personally, I'm a fan of this accelerated spin dash, It's really exhilarating having classic Sonic accelerate through levels so effortlessly. But be careful, as it could quite often lead to a premature death. Modern Sonic controls almost one-to-one how he did in Sonic Unleashed. He can slide, wall jump, and drift like there's no tomorrow, and his boost gauge is back to being filled through your collection of rings, as well as defeating Batniks. New to Sonic Generations is the trick combo system. At certain points in the level, Sonic will be launched into the air, and with the combination of holding down the analog stick in a given direction while holding down one of the shoulder buttons, Sonic will perform a fancy trick in the air, as well as add a bit of energy to his boost gauge. I really like this aspect of the game. Aside from that though, there isn't anything new added to Sonic Generations control-wise. But that's okay, because the control is beautifully accurate and precise. I find Sonic Generations to be even more fine-tuned than Sonic Colors. I never once felt as though I didn't have control over Sonic, so whenever I died, it was legit my fault, as opposed to having a lack of stability over Sonic's movement. The game is divided up into 9 stages, with every 3 stages representing an era of Sonic. There are 3 stages for the classic era, 3 for the Dreamcast era, and 3 stages for the modern era. Each stage has 2 acts, with Act 1 being playable as classic Sonic, and Act 2 being playable as modern Sonic. Sonic Generations doesn't have as many stages as Sonic Colors, but that's not an issue here, as these are some of the best Sonic levels we've gotten in a long time. Not only is each level a beautiful recreation of the original, but they also heavily reward skill and exploration. For example, towards the end of Green Hill Zone Act 2, Sonic finds himself in front of a row of Batniks hovering over a bridge that he can homing attack across. But seeing as though I didn't want to deal with that, I decided to use the stomp move that would subsequently destroy the bridge and land me directly into a shortcut. Secrets like that are so satisfying to discover, and every level in the entire game is like that. I personally enjoy every stage in this game. They all hit that sweet spot of thrill and spectacle without overstaying their welcome. Once you complete all 3 stages within an era of Sonic, you are tasked with collecting 3 boss keys that will allow you to fight the boss and move on to the next era. These boss keys are obtained by completing one of 10 challenge missions for each stage. There are 5 for each act, and to be quite honest, I was never really interested in these missions to begin with. I feel as though they pad out the game for the sake of making it longer. Granted, the game isn't long by any means, but these challenges feel as though they were added in to add 1 extra hour of gameplay. They aren't bad. For the most part, they just require you to complete an abridged version of the level with a certain stipulation, like racing against a Sonic doppelganger, or completing a stage with a certain amount of rings. But overall, I would have preferred to not have them at all. I only mind them so much because they are a roadblock to one of my favorite parts of the game, and that being the boss fights. The boss fights in this game are magnificent. There are 2 types of boss fights, rival fights and era fights. The rival fights have you encounter one of Sonic's past rivals, including Metal Sonic, Shadow, and Silver. Honestly, these fights are very exhilarating, bringing out the beauty of what made the original fight great. And in Silver's case, brings a much better boss fight than the original. For the era fights, we have the Death Egg Robot, Perfect Chaos, and the Egg Dragoon. And these fights are just as great, if not better than the rival battles. These battles aren't difficult, but they're intense. They keep Sonic on the move. The player has to keep their eyes sharp, or else you won't prevail. I really enjoyed that aspect of them, and each one of them brings a unique challenge to the table, like how you have to continuously boost in the boss fight with Perfect Chaos, or else Sonic will drown. It's little stuff like that that brings out the most enjoyment of these fights, and I love every second of it. The final boss of the game is a Super Sonic fight against the Time Eater with both Classic Sonic and Modern Sonic. It's not bad, but nowhere near as good as the other bosses. You have to continuously change between Classic and Modern Sonic depending on what dimension the Time Eater is in. That way you can ram into his core, all the while collecting rings to make sure that Super Sonic is still active. Truthfully, the final boss is my least favorite, as it feels like a really long waiting game, but overall the bosses here are a ton more energetic and fun than the bosses we got in Sonic Color. Upon completing the game, Super Sonic is unlocked and playable in any level as Classic Sonic and or Modern Sonic, and he controls just as you'd expect. Once you obtain 50 rings, Sonic can go Super, and he's invincible for the entire duration until he runs out of rings. Before you enter a stage, Super Sonic can be equipped along with a variety of different abilities, like the Elemental Shields. They are back from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I personally never equip them because I find it more of a hassle to buy them and equip them before starting the stage rather than finding them through exploration, but the option's on the table. Once again, there are 5 red rings scattered throughout each stage, but this time there isn't a large incentive to do so since Supersonic is unlocked just for completing the game. But collecting all of them does unlock concept art if you're into that sort of thing. There was a lot of love put into this game. You can tell just from the visuals themselves. I think Sonic the Hedgehog looks fantastic in high definition. The character models and animations look great, and an HD makeover does wonders for a lot of these levels. I love the way stages like Chemical Plant, City Escape, and Seaside Hill look. The original levels still look great even to this day, but the remade stages for Sonic Generations are a completely different ballgame. And do I even need to mention how great the music is? Sonic Generations has remixed songs from each stage specifically made for each act, and these are just as great as the original. And if you're not a fan of them, you can even choose from a list of different popular songs from Sonic's history and have them played during the stage instead. Sonic Generations is not only a fantastic Sonic game, but a fantastic game in general. I come back and replay stages from Sonic Generations very frequently, and for good reason. This game doesn't have any deal-breaking issues. In fact, you could consider most cons from this game nitpicks, kinda like how I said the challenge missions are unnecessary. But overall, this game is very needed for Sonic. We got 2 great Sonic games back to back with Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations, and I'm very glad to say that Sonic had a very successful 20th birthday with this game. To those of you that made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I appreciate the time you spent watching my video. If you happen to like the video, remember to hit the like button and share the video. And if you're looking to see more videos from me, subscribe to my channel. And most importantly, take it easy and stay tuned for the next video.